Welcome. This video is going to be about transposing to minor. This video is a follow-up video to my video Transposition Part 1. The link for that video will be in this video's description. Transposition to minor is different because deciding what key the minor is can go many different routes. I will explain three very common and simple choices. So first we have a relative minor, second we have a parallel minor, and third we can have any choice minor. Let's quickly summarize what each of these terms mean on a simple level. Okay, first we have what is known as the relative minor. To get a relative minor, you take a major scale and you find the sixth note or the sixth degree, those are the same thing, of that scale. So this is the note that is your first note of your new scale. It is called the relative minor because it uses the same exact notes as the original key it came from, so it relates to that scale. Okay, so let's compare a scale to its relative minor and see what I mean. Then I'll explain why this is. Okay, we're going to start with C major. Okay, as you can see, here are the notes in C major. You see no sharps, you see no flats. Okay, so we're going to look at the sixth note. We have the note A. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the same progression of notes and we're going to start on A and make the same progression of notes, just starting and ending on A instead of starting and ending on C. Okay, so let's look what happens. We start on A, we go through that same progression, and it leads us all the way like up here to G, back to A again. So that's what's going on down here. That is our A minor scale, our relative minor of our C major. Okay, so now we have parallel minor. First, let's define what a parallel minor means. This just means use the same starting note as your major scale, but now you make it a minor scale. For example, if you had C major, you would just turn that into C minor. Let's see what that would look like. So as you can see here, we have C major, and now we're going to create C minor. As you can see, it's quite different. We have three flats compared to our original key. So this shows us the difference between a major scale and its parallel minor. If we label our major scale as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we can see that in comparison to our minor scale labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, our minor scale has a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7. Okay, so let's look at another example to make sure we understand this. C sharp major has the notes C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B sharp. So you can see this, they're all sharped. But don't worry, this is still going to be very easy. It's the same exact thing. So if we wanted to find the parallel minor scale of C major, we would take the above scale and we would flatten the 3, 6, and 7. This would give us C sharp minor, which would have the notes C sharp, D sharp, E natural, F sharp, G sharp, A natural, and B natural. As you can see, when I say flatten the note, it means lower the note by a semitone. So if the note is already sharp, that note is now going to become a natural. If it was already natural, then it would become a flat. This is why E, A, and B are natural instead of flat. They're already coming from a sharp state, so they just get lowered one semitone, and now they're in their natural state. So as you can see, here's a comparison of our C sharp major scale, and now our C sharp minor scale. So it's pretty easy to think about. I like to just think about that you have oftentimes your third that you're building a chord off of, so it's easy to just think about the third. If you think times 2, you just think 6, so 3 times 2, 6, it's kind of like doubled, 3 doubled, 6, and then your last note in the scale is 7. So if you just kind of think about it your own way, maybe create a certain different method that you do. But for me, I think about it just like that. Okay, I'm going to get a third, I'm going to get a 6, 3, 6, 7, and it's pretty easy to memorize. Okay, so now transposing to any minor scale of your choice. For this, it will be good to visually see what is going on. I will be using sheet music to make this easier to understand. So first we have to know what minor scale we would like to use. Once we have that figured out, we identify the accidentals in the key. Let's start a simple A minor. A minor has no flats or no sharps as we talked about in the example before. If you don't remember, that is no problem. Just remember that A minor has no flats, no sharps. So second, we must take the same melody as before and move it to the line or space attributed with A on the staff. So let's start doing that now. Let me come up with a little simple melody, and then I'll show you how I'm going to transpose it. Okay, so let's build a little quick simple melody. A good way to build a melody is start to think of a chord and kind of go around that or kind of base it off of that. So we'll go C major, which has the notes C, E, and G natural. And with that chord, we could fill in the middle notes in the key. So in the key of C, we'd also be able to do C, D, E, F, and G to be able to connect those notes together, still using notes in the key. Okay? So now I'm going to use that knowledge and also the knowledge of the dominant to tonic relationship, which is a very important part of Western harmonic music. And let's just take those two kind of simple ideas and kind of make them into just a simple melody. Okay, so to make my simple melody, I'm going to first highlight my C major chord by playing it horizontally. So what this means is when you're looking at music vertically, you're looking at it harmonically right now all at once. But when you're looking at music horizontally, you're still thinking about the music being harmonic, but it is through time. So it's this note harmonizes with this note and harmonizes with this note, but they're not being played all at once. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to highlight first the chord C, E, G, and then I'll travel down the chord using those middle notes. So I'll go from G, F, E, D, and then from D I'll go back to my tonic, which will kind of give that sound of that G note that kind of wants to settle back down to my 1, which will then tell us, okay, the melody is over. So let's listen to what this sounds like. Very simple, but it progresses a musical statement that highlights a chord and sounds harmonious to the ears, and then has a resolution which then tells you the melody is over. It's like a period at the end. Okay, so let's write that melody down on the staff. I'm going to use the treble clef. Okay, so now we have those notes written on the staff, and you might be thinking right now, well, I already talked about transposing from C major to A minor. Well, the thing is, I'm showing you any choice minor, and I'm just kind of showing you the easiest one first, so that happens to be C major to A minor. I'm showing you how to do it on sheet music though, and how to understand how to notate this. So this is the first step, and then after this I will be going into a different scale other than C major. So remember what we're saying, we're taking this melody, it's in C major, and we just want to go to any minor scale, so we're just going to choose A minor because it's easy. So now let's take this melody in C major, and now let's make it a melody in A minor. Okay, so now as you can see, the melody is written in A minor, and as we talked about, A minor has no flats or no sharps. So when notating music, you would notate the key signature, and because A minor has no flats or no sharps, our key signature is telling us that this whole line of music has no flats and no sharps in it, because nowhere does it tell us that it does. So we have this melody in A minor now. Let's hear how it sounds. So I don't know if you heard it, and I'll play both so you can compare them, but that might have sounded a little more emotional to you, maybe even a little more sad to you. And that's typically how the minor scale sounds to people. So first I'm going to play the melody in C major, and then I'm going to play it in A minor after, so you can compare and maybe see how the C major is a little more happy sounding. Okay, now A minor. If that didn't sound that much different to you, that's totally fine. Everyone has a different ear and a different interpretation of music. So now we successfully transposed a melody that was in C major, and now we wanted to do an A minor, and we successfully did that. So now let's move on to something a little more difficult that's not going to be in C major, so we get some more gears turning here. Okay, so now let's do a more difficult one. The melody starts in F sharp major. Now I want to transpose it to C minor. We just do the same thing as before. We take the original melody, we keep the same structure, and we move it so it starts on the line or space attributed to that new note. We're going to do C because of C minor. Once that is done, we just change the key signature from F sharp major to C minor. Doing this, the sharps from F sharp major are removed from the staff, and now the staff contains the notes that are going to be in C minor, which are B flat, E flat, and A flat. Those represent C minor. I'm going to discuss how I did that so you can understand this. So I'm first just going to do what I said. I'm going to move the same structure of melody. I'm going to move it so it starts on C minor, and then I'm going to notate the accidental notes, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So let's look at how I notated F sharp major up here. Okay, so if you look, there are a bunch of sharps here in the beginning. What this is telling us is that anytime we reach any of these notes, it's going to be a sharpened version. If the note does not mention that it's going to be sharpened, then it is not. And this does not only apply to the line or space it's on. So as our first one is going to be an F sharp. That means that this F sharp is sharp, but also any other sharp would be sharp too. So if there was an F down here, if there was an F way up here, it would still be F sharp because this key signature is telling us anytime there is an F, it's going to now be F sharp, no matter what octave it is in. And how do I know this is F sharp major? Well, for one, I can see 6 sharps right off the bat, but that's because I understand what this is. So let's take the key F sharp major and figure out how I did that. So I understand that F sharp major is a key that is going to be on the sort of sharpened section of key signatures of your available key signatures. So in those we have G major, D major, A major, E major, B major, F sharp major, and C sharp major. And those are the scales that are going to be using notes that we are going to be thinking of as sharp. So from C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, that's 6 away from C. Because it's 6 away from C on that sharp side, it's telling me I have 6 sharp notes here. Those sharpened notes are F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. And again, my circle of fifths video in the description will explain this all in depth. So now I'm going to take those sharpened notes, and as you noticed, I set it in an order of F, C, G, D, A, E, B. This is known as your order of sharps. I didn't say the B at the end because I only had 6 of them. So let's look at that. I started on my F, so I put my F my closest to the left. So if you're reading it left to right like we normally read English, my first one would be an F, and then it goes to C, and you see it goes up to G, one above F, and then it goes to D, that line that's right above your B, and then it goes to A, and then it goes to E. So all those sharpened notes on the staff are telling us, okay, we are in the key of F major. And since you see my melody here doesn't have any other accidentals, which would be a sharp, flat, or a natural written anywhere, it's showing us that this melody is in the key of F sharp major because it's following all the notes that are in F sharp major. Okay, so now I'm just going to rewrite the same melody, and I'm going to start it on that C note, and since it's C minor, I'm going to then change the key signature so then it represents C minor. I'm going to do this first, and then I'm going to explain to you how I did that. Okay, so as you can see, things might look a little familiar here. We have the same melody like we started, and it starts on C just like the first example, but now we're in a different key signature. We're in C minor. So the fact that we're starting on C and we see these notes here is communicating to us that we are in C minor. So let's figure out how I understand this and how I figured all this out. Okay, so here's the sort of method that I use. I'm going to use the circle of fifths, which can help us figure this out. To find out what accidentals are in C minor, I just follow these steps. Step 1, find my relative major of that minor scale. Step 2, find what accidentals are in my relative major scale. And then step 3, translate those accidentals that you found in your major scale to the staff, or another way would be adding the accidentals to the notes itself or the melody itself if you're not going to be actually writing the music down. But I mean, writing and reading music is pretty simple. So I'm trying to teach you some basic stuff here, and it's just like learning how to read and write English. It's just a way to be able to think of something and be able to write it down so another day you can look at it, or from that idea you can maybe branch off, get another idea, or vary it somehow, or yada yada. So let's try out that method. We want C minor. Step 1, we're going to find the relative major to C minor. To do this, remember I was saying you can just count up a minor third to make it easy, or in other words, you count up 3 semitones because a minor third contains 3 semitones. And as you can see, we'll count these semitones coming after D. 1, 2, 3 semitones makes a minor third. So it's telling us that if we're on C minor, we're now going to count up 3 semitones. 1, 2, 3. And look where we land. We land on the note E flat. And I'm calling it E flat because let's instead think about it in sharps. So I'll say the sharps out loud as I'm doing this. So I'll do C, and now I'm going to count up 3 after this. C sharp, D, D sharp. Well, the problem with that is D sharp is not a key signature. So if we take D sharp's enharmonic equivalent, we realize that D sharp is also another way of just saying E flat. Because it's D sharp, but it's also E flat. So E flat is a key signature, so it's kind of telling us, okay, if the key signature looks like this, it looks like it might be D sharp, but that's not an actual key signature. Okay, we know it's E flat instead because that's an enharmonic equivalent note. So now that we know the relative major is E flat, think about what accidentals are an E flat major. Okay, so to do that, we're going to think of where E flat is away from C on the circle of fifths, and that would only be 3 away because we're going to go from C, we're going to go down the circle of fifths, we're going to go to F, and then we're going to go to B, and then we're going to go to E. So we're going to start from C on the circle of fifths, and we're going to go down. So we're starting on C, then we go F, B, and E. Since E flat major is 3 keys down from C major on the circle of fifths, this tells us that this key has 3 flats in it. And it also tells us those flats are B flat, E flat, and A flat, because that's the order of flats. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. If you really want to know how to understand that and memorize it, it's actually not that hard, and my video again on the circle of fifths explains all this. Okay, so now we know the relative major to that minor scale we're using. Remember, we wanted C minor, and now we're using the relative major, which is E flat major. And now we know that E flat major is consisted of the notes B flat, E flat, and A flat. So as you can see here, I took my melody and I put it in C, and then I put these flats here on the side, which are B flat, E flat, and A flat, which is communicating to us that if we are starting on C and this melody is in C, but we have these flat notes, that would fit perfectly in C minor. So another way to look at that is the new melody has the notes B flat, E flat, and A flat in the notes. All the other notes are natural, but we want to be in the key of C minor, so we just start on that note C, and then we make sure that anytime we have a B flat, E flat, or A flat, we just make sure that we play that flattened version. That's all we do, and now we have a melody that is in C minor. The reason for taking all these steps and doing it this way is because instead of memorizing every single major scale and your minor scale, and then having to understand what notes are in every single one of those in your major and your minor and memorizing all that, you don't actually have to memorize it, you just have to understand the method of creating it. You understand the circle of fifths, and it allows us to know what notes are in each key signature, major or minor, using that simple method. So now this part of the video is going to be about understanding relative minor further. This is a really good thing to understand because it's going to be a basic level of showing you, okay, why do these two things sound good when they're next to each other? And we can kind of start to come up with some simple ideas off of this. And from here, we can grow to much more complex and bigger ideas. So relative minor. This is simple when you understand modes. If you do not understand modes, then I will simplify it. To get a relative minor of any scale, this is what you do. First, you know the notes in your original scale you're starting from. To do this, you could write down the scale you are using. Or you can also just use C major since it has no flats or no sharps, which makes it easy to think about. So let's do C major. It's always good to start on this because with the no sharps and no flats, you literally get to see exactly what's going on here. And then you can just translate that to any other scale that has a sharp or a flat, because each major scale has the same distance away from each note starting from the first note. It's just in a different order. being in a different order. Sometimes it has sharps, flats, yada yada. I hope that made sense. Okay, so C major is written down here. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now we find the minor scale. Again, we just go up that 6th note like before. We start on that 6th note and we progress up the scale until we land on A again. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, because we originally had C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but we're starting on the A now, so it's the same thing, but now it's just going to be starting on A, just telling us A minor. Since the ending A is just a higher version of A, the progression starts again, or keeps repeating infinitely, and A is again the 1. Now we have the relative minor scale. Now let's try something different and more difficult than C major. I will choose C sharp major. As you can see here, every single note is sharpened. Again, all that we do is we're going to find the 6th note. We're going to keep all of these same notes as before. Since they're all sharp, now they're going to be all sharp again. And we're just going to start. Then we're just going to progress up the original scale starting from that 6th note, just like we did before. So 6th note is A sharp. So as you can see, it's basically the same thing as before, but now we just have a bunch of sharps after the note. That's the only thing that's the difference. This key has all sharpened notes. So we're going to go A through G back to A with all sharps on it. And that is telling us we have C sharp major when we are centering around this C sharp scale and that C sharp tonic note. If we start on the A sharp note and we use the same notes and centers around A sharp and kind of treats A sharp as a tonic, then we're going to know, okay, we're actually in A sharp minor. So after understanding all of our major scales on the circle of fifths, we can either go both ways. If we had a minor scale and we wanted to figure out which accidentals to do, we could just go up that minor third, we create our relative major, and we know which accidentals are now in that key. Or if we want to get a relative minor and we already have a relative major, we could go up to the 6th note in the scale, or in other words, a major 6th, or we can go down a minor third, which will land us on the same note as the 6th note in the scale. So if this is all new to you, this might seem a little bit like gibberish at first, but just kind of review it, think about it over and over, maybe watch the video a few times, and I guarantee that it will not be that difficult once you understand this. You probably need a few aha moments if it doesn't click right away, and that's great because you will really understand this when that happens. Okay, so now I've talked about all this stuff, let's look at how to do this. Let's choose any usable key signature. E major is going to be my choice. The circle of fifths tells us that E major is the 4th note away from C, ascending up perfect fifths, or in other words, ascending up major keys. So C is starting, then we go G, D, A, E. We have 4. Then the cycle of sharps tells us that our accidental notes in the key of E major are F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. So now first I'm going to write down a scale that just goes from E to E. So as you can see, the scale goes from E to E. After D, of course, the note is E after that. And there's a question kind of here. Is this a scale? You see it's going through these notes without any sharps or flats. Yes, this is a scale, but that is for a different video. Just know it is not major or minor. So now let's apply those accidentals to this. Our F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp are now added to this progression of E to E. And what happens is this, as you can see, we have our F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. And now this is communicating with us that we're in E major. So now we're just going to look at the 6th note. All of this can be done in your head once you understand it. So this time I'm not going to number it, just so you can see that at the end of a scale you have your 7th degree. So you just know that if you go 1 back from your last note in your scale, then you're going to have your 6th note, which is also going to be the note you're going to build your relative minor on. So I start on C sharp, and then I start going up notes, and I don't do any accidentals. I don't do sharps or flats, or it doesn't say anything. It's just the notes in their raw form. So as you can see, after this B note, our next note would be C sharp. But now that we know our sharps are F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp in that relative major key, and now we're just going to apply those accidental notes on that progression from C sharp that we had up here. So now we're going to add our F sharp, C sharp we already had, G sharp, and D sharp. Now we have a scale that is in C sharp minor. which is the relative minor of E major because it uses the same exact notes as E major, just in a different order. To conclude, to find the relative minor of a major scale, we find that sixth note of the scale, and we start a new scale from that note using the same exact notes as our relative major scale that it came from. Okay, so another tip to find a relative minor of any major scale is take the major scale, in this case I will use C major, and count down that minor third. Okay, so let's count down that minor third again. We're going to start on C. We're going to go 3 semitones, 1, 2, 3, and as you can see we land on the note A, which is just like if we counted up the sixth note in our scale. A either way. So counting down a minor third might make it easier for you, might not, but it especially might make it easier for you if you're already in minor and you just think 3 semitones up to your relative major. That is it for this video on transposing to minor keys. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best in answering those questions. Thank you very much. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing and hitting that bell. I'm going to be posting a lot of helpful videos coming up. Stuff all sort of centering around and leading up to the whole idea of composing. And then I'm going to have videos actually on the idea of composing after that. And also I've posted a whole lot of videos, so if you want to check those out, I have things from the beginning, just like beginner level stuff, really simple, leading all the way now up to some more complex stuff, which is going to be leading us into the territory of composing and understanding music a lot more, and we're looking at it, hearing it, and much more. So stay tuned. Give this video and other videos a thumbs up if you find them helpful. Thank you very much.